we all kind of had the same impression from out the gate, was that Brad Lander had a really good night. I think that Andrew Cuomo looked pretty damaged by the end of the night. I even said on television that he looked a bit exhausted or tired at the end.
But I did feel like usually my spidey senses when the supposed frontrunner is going negative,
they're in trouble.
They're panicking.
That they're taking on water.
Lander went after him on that. He went after him on the nursing homes. He went after him on the MTA workers. I mean, he was really on the offensive tonight.
Welcome to New York One's Off Topic on Politics. I'm New York One's investigative reporter, Courtney Gross. Moments ago, literally about a half hour ago as of this point, 7 top candidates for mayor just stepped off the stage at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, where they spent 2 hours clashing on their qualifications and experience to become the city's next mayor. We hosted the debate along with our partners, WNYC, and the news organization, The City, and it will be the final debate of the Democratic primary. Early voting starts on Saturday, and to break it all down in instant analysis, sort of.
Close to instant.
10
minutes after the debate. Actually, it's not 10 minutes after the debate because we were on TV doing a half-hour long.
Oh, so my timing is a little
show.
off.
It's about an hour.
All right, so Bobby Cuza is here, and Bob Hardt is here. It's 10 o'clock.
It's Hart. You should learn how to say my name. That's a reference to Zohran.
Well,
Mamdani.
our loyal listeners
Yes.
here might know that I struggle sometimes saying his name, and I did on air in the beginning, but I think I say it right now.
I think maybe last
Cuza.
week he would. You do the same thing that Cuomo does. Instead of Mamdani,
I do it.
Say Mamdani. And I was just thinking about this actually because somebody said to me, I think Cuomo does this on purpose, right? It's a way of diminutizing someone to purposely mispronounce their name. But then I was like, maybe not, because Courtney mispronounces it. So
it's
maybe
definitely
Cuomo's
not intentional. And now I'm so paranoid on television that I almost have to say it really slow, and viewers might be like, what's wrong with her?
No, but is Cuomo doing it on purpose or not?
Oh, I
don't think he is.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
No, I don't know. Well, you can't just call him ZM because there's also Zellner Myrie. When are you going to have
But
a
here's
race
the thing,
with two?
Our listeners, there was this moment in the debate we should reference that they were debating over experience or inexperience in some cases. Andrew Cuomo was obviously attacking Zohran Mamdani over his inexperience. He's 33 years old, has only been in the state legislature for 4.5 years. He doesn't have much accomplishments. He talks about the taxi worker fund and obviously the free bus pilot, but he doesn't have this huge resume. He doesn't have a bridge to sell you, or a bridge that he built, I guess, right? Is that what they say? Meanwhile, Cuomo was talking about how much experience he has. And the viral moment of the debate, which was excellent, Bob, very good job, was when Mamdani says, spell my name? No,
you said you should learn how to say it.
Yeah.
He said, and it was his Muhammad Ali moment.
Yeah.
If he wins, everyone will point back to that as this great moment. And if he loses, we'll probably all forget.
It's already. Is it viral on Twitter already?
He didn't. I think Courtney, you said something to me at the time we were watching it on set. He didn't quite finish it. He said
he should have said, because I'm going to be mayor.
He almost did.
Yeah, he almost did. He said you should learn how to say it right. And I thought he was going to say, because I'm going to be the mayor.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to say it for the next 4 years.
Right.
I thought he was going to say.
Yes. Yeah. That's what he should have said. But that was, we're talking about it kind of frivolously, but that was an important moment in the debate.
All right, let's I think we're diving too deep too quickly. It's
my fault.
Do broad strokes, big picture, get in your airplane up top and look from below or something, whatever that is. What are your first impressions? I feel like I was sitting on set with Bobby all night. We were watching it in whatever studio we call that, Studio A.
Studio A.
I should know this. I've worked here for 1,000 years.
And not as long as I have.
Not as long as you, that's true. We're there with our panelists, and we all kind of had the same impression from out the gate, was that Brad Lander had a really good night. I think that Andrew Cuomo looked pretty damaged by the end of the night. I even said on television that he looked a bit exhausted or tired at the end. What are your thoughts?
I think I saw him driving way after the debate as well. For real, driving.
Was he gunning it down 59th Street?
No, it was just a regular car, but I can't swear for it. You were watching the studio. I was watching it in the production truck, which sounds like, wow, that must be exciting. You're in a truck. I'm wedged in a middle seat. I'm the fat guy in the middle, sweating. It's
outside of the building. You're not even in the building.
No, you're not even in the building. The technical director, Bauman, who's wonderful, but it's everyone's talking. I'm this is one of the best place to watch a debate, honestly, is in your living room.
Yeah.
When there's no one, and like with baby Gus not around and PJ not around.
Baby Cub. It's 10 o'clock. It's really late. Baby Gus loves watching your one.
But my point being is it just like you're saying, well, you're in a studio and you all have sort of the same opinion. I'm hearing like people like shouting out audio cues, yelling at camera people. But I was able to watch it. I was telling people to be quiet at times. I think I probably got my bosses mad at me. I do think that Cuomo at times struggled. He had a couple good moments where he's talking about leadership, but it's hard when a lot of the incoming fire is all aimed at you. I think the sexual harassment questions are still legitimately lingered, and his point about being experienced. Mamdani threw it back at him, and it's like, what, experience about being almost impeached and having to resign in disgrace?
Right.
I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo.
And he was ready for that in the litany. I think Brad Lander was able to come in the middle, and Adrian Adams to a lesser degree, and sort of be like, okay, I'm not the 33-year-old assemblyman. I'm not the tarnished former governor. I'm someone else. And I think he had a very strong night.
And it comes after this, we're struggling to define it on television all night, is the choice, I think is what it's actually called. The New York Times had a panel of prominent, influential New Yorkers who came together, and instead of having the editorial board decide who the paper should endorse, they had this panel come up with their decision, their choice, and 7 out of the 15 people chose Brad Lander, which is, he got the most votes out of all of these people, these 15 people, more than anybody else, and Brad Lander made sure that people knew about it tonight. Was it disingenuous to say he got the endorsement of the New York Times?
I don't know if most people make a distinction. That's the thing.
I keep on saying that it's not the endorsement of the New York Times.
It's like the Times endorsement light. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the real thing. It's like the non-alcoholic beer. It's still something for him. But I said to Pat Kiernan this morning, I really thought that Lander would have been the editorial choice of the New York Times, and it really costs them to a degree that they're not doing endorsements anymore. Yeah.
But I think, all of us who are in the world of media and politics, we think this is a big deal. The New York Times isn't doing editorial endorsements this political season. But then, yes, it might have been endorsement light, but it's still, it's still just a bunch of people talking about their preferences, which is kind of what the editorial board is in the first place. And of 15 people, 7 of them picked Brad Lander, and nobody else, I think no other candidate had more than 2. So he was overwhelmingly the most popular choice. So, he can certainly claim that it wasn't an endorsement. I think the way it was phrased in the write-up, in the article in the Times, was that he was the top choice. What did they say? It was like the something like the top choice, but they qualified it in a way. But when Brad Lander gets up there on the debate stage and says, "I was the New York Times editorial panel's choice,
top choice,"
which is like, I guess that's accurate.
Yeah.
And I don't know if most people know the difference. So I think it's probably going to help him. As we all know, in 2021, Catherine Garcia got endorsed by the New York Times, and it almost catapulted her to the mayoralty. She only came a few thousand votes short. I can't
remember how many weeks out that was. We're less than 2 weeks out.
She failed to mention that in the debate, after it happened too, which was stunning to me, political malpractice. Quick side note about this New York Times thing. Sorry, whoops, I'm breaking the table here. Michael Bloomberg's, one of his political gurus is Howard Wolfson, who was one of the panelists. Wolfson didn't follow his boss's lead and go with Cuomo. He went with Whitney Tilson. Yeah. So I was
when you read the write-up, it says that in effect, if you're not voting or putting Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mamdani as your top choice, you need to figure out potentially another place to put them on the ballot, because most people think that this is a 2-man contest as of this point. So even if you put Adrian Adams or Brad Lander at the top of your ticket, if you don't have Andrew Cuomo or Zohran Mamdani on there, then you're kind of tossing out your vote. You should put one of them on there, and eventually your vote will count. And he said that he would, I can't remember the exact word Wolfson used, was that he would unhesitatingly vote for Andrew Cuomo.
Or hesitatingly, maybe.
I can't remember if it was un or hesitatingly. It's
Well,
a big
it's a
difference.
difference.
But getting back to the debate, it really was very stark. I mean, obviously Brad Lander tried to thread the needle, and Adrian Adams did too. But I do think like you still felt like there's these two stark choices, these two different pillars in the race, two very flawed, and two both have strengths, but also have really noticeable weaknesses as well.
Well, that brings me back to Brad Lander. Brad Lander's been consistent. Well, do we say consistently? He's been polling third in some polls, most of the polls. He had this moment with Andrew Cuomo. I feel like it was 18 minutes into the debate, and we were live blogging it. And I said, "Wow, that was a moment for Brad Lander. He feels emboldened because of this non-Times editorial page backing endorsement thingamajig." And he went out and he attacked Andrew Cuomo on some contract issue they had with people who were cleaning the subway during COVID that were not getting paid a prevailing wage. And he just went after Andrew Cuomo in such a way that I was like, oh, this guy's here to play ball. This guy is here to make sure that voters are paying attention to him. And whether you like it or not, in a debate on television, the more you attack, the more you get interject, the more you put yourself out there, the more face time you get, the more airtime you get, the more people recognize your candidacy, the more people will know you and maybe look into who you are.
And Cuomo doesn't like Brad Lander. At one point he said Brad with such disdain.
Which it reminded me of Eric Adams.
Yeah.
Did you think of Eric Adams? Because Mayor Adams does the same thing.
And then he also noted that Lander's not a native New Yorker,
right?
Which was really kind of like
St. Louis. And St.
Very
Louis.
Not all of us are native New Yorkers.
Right. Well, that's the thing that
none of us at this table are native New Yorkers.
I'm an Albany native.
California, New Jersey.
Yeah.
I just thought it was Anthony Roman
is a native New Yorker.
There you go.
Okay. So.
But that's very un-New York to be like, you're not from here. The whole idea is that you're supposed to welcome everyone. But it did to me really show like Cuomo doesn't like Brad Lander either.
Yeah, but it felt like they were teaming up on Cuomo in a way, and maybe that was where you got this impression that Cuomo was almost like battered a little bit because they were both coming at him, and it didn't feel like they were cheap attacks, right? It felt like I thought that a lot of those exchanges sometimes when people go after each other in a debate, it feels like they're just kind of trying to score points, and they have these like canned one-liners.
Like Cuomo going after Mamdani about like, you think Obama, like the stuff about Obama and Hakeem Jeffries felt canned.
But even, and of course, Lander's attack, he obviously had it well prepared. But I thought those exchanges were really revealing. And even the exchange where with Mamdani saying he was mispronouncing his name, they were going back and forth about experience. And Cuomo, we're making it sound like, Cuomo got killed in this debate.
No, I think at times he held his own.
At times, and I thought he was very, he's obviously a very skilled politician. At times, he would be asked a question. I think one of the questions was about him being too old to be mayor. And he very quickly turned it around and made it about Mamdani's inexperience. And I thought, he did it in a way that you almost didn't even notice that he did it, and our moderators didn't stop him. But then that led to this exchange. And Cuomo, it wasn't just that. I think this was a little bit of a change in tenor from the first debate. The first debate, he went after Mamdani for his lack of experience. You've been in government for 27 minutes. You've only passed 3 pieces of legislation. Now he was making it sound like his lack of experience is dangerous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was.
And he just released an ad this morning, his 4th ad.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have another one before primary day, but this one is the first one where he's going negative. The other ones were generally positive, talking about his experience. He's the person, still talking about fear and crime, and he's the one to save the city. But this one directly went after Mamdani and called him dangerous.
And part of it is tied to what we're seeing in LA right now, where the federal troops are going after protesters. And Cuomo's argument is, what if this, one of the ads says this could be in Times Square, and how would Mamdani handle this? He's really seizing on that moment right now.
There's definitely an element of fear mongering in that ad because it starts out saying, I think LA's in chaos.
Yeah.
And even President Trump this morning is saying, well, we've had 2 days of peace in LA. So Cuomo saying LA is worse than Donald Trump is really, I think that. I said something to one of the Cuomo people, and they said, well, we closed negative in other races too. But I did feel like usually my spidey senses when the supposed frontrunner is going negative,
they're in trouble.
They're panicking.
That they're taking on water.
Yeah. is some polling. I was told by a source out in the field we should potentially get a legitimate poll next week. I mean, we know that we've gotten lots of internal polls floating around. Other outlets are writing them up. That's not something we do here at New York One. We wait for legitimate institutions, polling institutions to come out.
Like Emerson College?
Like Emerson College, obviously, to come out with legitimate polling, which hopefully we'll get next week. But the moment I saw that ad this morning, I was like, oh, they think that something is up. And
that was my feeling too.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when I remember when Joe Crowley, the congressman, was running for re-election
against AOC.
Against this newcomer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I got a phone call from Crowley's people, and they said, we'd be interested in debating her. And the bells went off in my head, like, wow, they want to debate her, because we'd offered them a month earlier, and that's, to me, that was the telltale sign that their internal polls showed that there was trouble. Wow. So I sort of feel like that's what's happening here with Cuomo as well.
And I don't think this debate tonight did him any favors. I think that unlike the NBC debate, the sexual harassment attacks, he was only asked about sexual harassment once in the NBC debate, and they pretty much quickly asked him. He denied it. He gave the same the facts are out there. I was never charged. Denied the allegations, the same canned answer he's been giving for years on this now. And they kind of said, okay, and they moved on.
Right.
And the difference here is that all of his opponents, not only did Katie Honan ask him a question about it, but all of his opponents even before that had brought up the specific allegations, including this incident that he had with Charlotte Bennett in his office, talking about or asking her about her sex life. Allegedly, like inappropriate behavior for any boss to have with their 25-year-old subordinate, obviously.
The gynecological records.
All of it. And those attacks really landed, I think, much more forcefully this time around than what we've seen in public thus far.
And I mean, Lander went after him on that. He went after him on the nursing homes. He went after him on the MTA workers. I mean, he was really on the offensive tonight. But I mean, I wanted to go back to the ads and this idea of whether Cuomo is, feels like Mamdani is such a threat that he needs to go negative, which obviously he does. But there was this flyer that we learned about today, and I'm not sure how much traction this is going to get, if this is going to become a bigger story. I mean, it got written up in a lot of places immediately. It was a flyer put out. Well, it wasn't actually put out.
It was supposed to be a mailer.
According to Fix the City, which is the super PAC supporting Cuomo, this mailer was created, and has a picture of Zohran Mamdani where his image has been doctored so that it looks like his beard is darker and fuller and bigger. And, as you can imagine, if it has the effect of making him look a lot scarier, right? Like he's this scary, radical Muslim socialist is the effect that I think it's trying to create. And I mean, some people might say that it's over the line. I mean,
but it didn't go. It
didn't go out.
It didn't go out. But how did anyone ever get to see this?
Well, we don't know how.
Someone must have leaked it.
Yeah, we don't know how it got leaked. But it was, according to Fix the City, to the super PAC, it was designed by one of their vendors, they said, but it never actually got mailed to people, so it didn't really.
We made something racist, but we never sent it out. So it's like,
so it's fine. And they rejected it out. They said they immediately rejected it, that they were never going to use it, but somehow it's gotten out into this public realm. And immediately this morning, Mamdani's campaign comes out saying it's Islamophobic, and that leads me back to the debate, because there was this exchange. Here at New York One, we've been tracking whether or not Andrew Cuomo has ever visited a mosque, and what during
we can't find any record.
So during his how many years as governor? 11 years,
10 and a half.
10 and a half years as governor. There's no record of him ever visiting a mosque. There's how many Muslim New Yorkers?
I think we said
760,000. I thought is what was said at the debate.
Mamdani said close to 1 million. I think.
I
don't know what the actual.
A lot.
And to be clear, this has been an issue before.
Yes, it came up in the 2018 gubernatorial contest with Zephyr Teachout.
And I think everybody forgot about it until now.
We brought it up.
Well, Ayanna Harry asked him about it during the campaign, and he promised that he'd be going to a mosque during the campaign, but the campaign's almost over.
Yeah. So, and what did that exchange lead to on the stage? I thought it was one of these moments that had the biggest contrast between these two men. One, it led Andrew Cuomo to attack Zohran Mamdani for being anti-Semitic and his views on BDS and Israel, and it gave him this opportunity to do that. Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani counters saying you're Islamophobic.
Yeah, he said that he was, Cuomo said that he was divisive. And I mean, I think he straight out at one point said that he was anti-Semitic.
He is the flip side of the coin of Trump. Trump says he'll boycott Cornell because they're anti-Israel. He says, I'll boycott Cornell because they're pro-Israel. Division is our death in this city, this state, and this nation. And division is what Trump sells. We should be selling unity, not the division that this man is spreading.
And Cuomo also there was this weird alliance that formed tonight between Cuomo and Whitney Tilson. Yeah. So they were combining to attack Mamdani. And in fact, during the cross-examination round, usually you ask one of your opponents a tough question. Cuomo did this, did this thing where he asked Tilson a question in order for Tilson to criticize him, in order for Tilson to criticize Mamdani, which I did think was very smart. And Tilson, I mean, he went after Mamdani all night. Not so much on the anti-Semitism stuff. It was more on the socialism stuff and him wanting to dismantle the NYPD and all the DSA policy, which Mamdani said at one point in the debate, it's not my policy. That's DSA policy. My policy is on my website.
Was Tilson the only candidate to say who he'd vote for in ranked choice? And he said he'd vote for Cuomo.
Yeah.
Second, which is, I'm glad you raised the whole cross-examination, because it did feel like there was this weird 3D chess going on where we're basically handing each candidate a hand grenade. Like, what are you going to do with it? Yeah. And then sometimes it's like, so several of them are like, oh, I'm just going to ask a nice question. I'm going to throw that hand grenade away, and I'm going to give a hug to Adrian Adams.
Yeah.
Which was
you built affordable housing. Right. How did you do that?
So there was a couple, right? How many favorable
there were at
questions?
Least two friendly questions.
To Adrian Adams.
Yep.
So I'm like
the only woman on the stage, not surprising.
So that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, what's going on here, guys? This is a love fest. They didn't all go after Cuomo, and they didn't all go after Mamdani. So there was an interesting strategy.
But Adrian Adams went after Mamdani, which I thought was interesting. But it was
very delicate.
Very delicately.
Like I feel like she got her point across in a way to be critical. She basically asked him, or she listed all of her qualifications.
Right.
Like I've done the city budget. I've been a mom. I've worked in corporate America for 20 years, and here's everything that I've done. You think you're more experienced than me to be mayor.
What makes you think you're more experienced or more qualified? Yeah. And then I thought he handled it well. He sort of complimented her back. It was like this exchange where, on paper it seemed like they were sparring, but it was actually very civil and polite. Yeah.
And Lander, I just remembered, went after Mamdani at the beginning when saying, like, I'm not great at TikTok, and I don't have a famous father or something. Maybe that's why Andrew Cuomo got so mad, obviously a reference to Mario Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, this was the final debate. I'm wondering where do we go from here? Do we think Andrew Cuomo is really that damaged? Do we think that Brad Lander is going to see some sort of spike?
The question is, there's a huge enthusiasm gap in this race. There's not a lot of people running around saying, I can't wait to vote for Andrew Cuomo, but there's probably more of them. That's the question. I think there's more of them than all the young people running around saying, I'm very excited about Mamdani. Nixon used to call it the silent majority, that people weren't running around talking about how great Nixon was, but on election day, Nixon in 1972 especially won in a landslide. So that's the only, and Cuomo used to always be obsessed with saying, Twitter's not real life, and the internet's not real life. But at some point, I mean, you look at AOC, and Joe Crowley could have said that, and he didn't. So it's just hard for me to tell if Mamdani, how much the enthusiasm will help him in the end.
I said on air at one point, Bobby, during our panel, that Cuomo, in the last Emerson College poll, 46% or 47% of people had an unfavorable opinion of Andrew Cuomo. And when we went to the debate, I looked at my phone and I'd gotten a text from a former elected official who said a third of them are voting for Andrew Cuomo. Like, they will hold their nose, they will go to the polls, and they know that this person has experience and will be able to run the city versus a 33-year-old who, doesn't.
Well, Ayanna had that amazing, my favorite quote of the whole campaign so far was the guy's like, Cuomo's a horrible human being. Yeah. I hate the guy, but I'm going to vote for him.
Because you need an SOB in charge or something.
Yeah.
And also, after the debate on our coverage on New York One, we had Kelly Mena at a debate watch party in Brooklyn, And I love hearing like the instant reaction from normal people because
Both of which were
never,
on the younger side, though. So
Yeah.
you're like speaking.
What'd
to
they
a certain
say?
but it always like totally
constituency,
defies your expectations. It was a
Yeah.
younger woman, black woman, and she said she was impressed by Adrienne Adams.
Yeah.
And then the other guy said, I think he
who
said
I
he was
thought
gonna,
had like a.
I thought you did okay.
I was gonna say a mediocre. Like she was fine.
She was fine.
She was fine.
Yeah, totally solid,
yeah.
but okay.
And then the other guy said he was voting for Zelnor Myrie, but he mispronounced his name. He called him Myrie Zelnor, I think, right?
I don't remember.
So, I mean,
I think Myrie got a little bit lost in this debate. I think the first debate was a little bit better.
he
Yeah.
was just, he's very earnest, and he, talked about his policy, and he does it in this very like straightforward, earnest kind of like, I mean, he's a self-described nerd, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's what you like, and you don't want to see the, you don't want to see the sparring,
Yeah.
then maybe he's your guy. But he wasn't in the mix the same way that everybody else was.
I think Courtney nailed it, though, that it's really going to be about someone who has eventually, do they have Cuomo fifth or Mamdani fifth? Because if it's, and that's how it might finally play out. That's according to ranked choice math.
Well, that's, and actually, I mean, this is sort of why ranked choice voting exists. If it comes down to two people, if it comes down to Cuomo and Mamdani, then no matter who else you're voting for, if you want Zelnor Myrie first, you're still getting a say in the outcome.
Yeah.
Because you can put Zelnor Myrie first, he still gets your vote, but then once everything is tabulated at the end, you will have a say whether it's Cuomo or Mamdani based on which one of them you have on your ballot.
And there is a Cuomo coalition out there. It's like middle class black voters and then like liberal whites who don't, or not liberal whites, sorry, moderate to conservative whites who are like, they don't like Mamdani. So it is like this weird group.
And the Orthodox Jewish vote seems to be going largely to Cuomo, not entirely.
Yeah. And unions. He has a lot of support out there, but we have
That
to
was
wait
actually,
and see.
I thought that was a good point. I thought that was another good moment for Cuomo in the debate when Mamdani went after him for his billionaire donors,
Yeah.
and he turns it around. And I'm sure he's been, asked this before, but he turns it around and said, "I have more support from unions than any other candidate on stage."
Which is a really strong answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are interested in voting, if you are a registered Democrat, you can start voting early on Saturday. And then you'll be able to vote for 10 days? And then it's off on the 23rd.
Yeah,
and then
Monday
the
is the
24th
day of rest before the actual.
the day of rest.
The election is
The day
here.
of rest. The election is here.
Unbelievable.
But that's going to do it for this week's episode. You can always watch us on Inside City Hall Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock. And we love your feedback. Send us an email at yourstoryNewYork1@charter.com. You can subscribe to Off Topic wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you're hearing, leave a review. Thanks to our producer, Anthony Roman, in the corner over there on the video dials. And the audio dials.
He's mourning
multitasking dials
Sly
here.
Stone and Brian Wilson, as am I. Two great musical geniuses.
And thank you all for listening. We will talk to you next week.
It really was a great debate.